Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. In today's video, we'll be taking a look at the 2024 House elections. I'll be making my first ever official 2024 House predictions, going through all these competitive districts. We have 90 of them, as I've outlined here. Everyone's up for re-election, so we have a lot of interesting races to cover. So I'm not going to spend too much time on an intro here. I do want to say briefly that these races this far out are hard to predict without assuming things that should necessarily be assumed. For example, I'm adding 2 seats to Democrats, one in Louisiana, one in Alabama, because of a court ruling that will 99% come into effect. But in the off chance something changes, these seats will go back to being Republican. Kentucky, there's a seat here that's a toss-up that would otherwise be safe Republican, because there is a current lawsuit regarding the state's congressional map, and the group that's suing them is alleging that this district in specific is a partisan gerrymander. And so House seats are drawn really weirdly sometimes, and that creates a lot of legal trouble for the parties involved. So they're ever changing. We almost always have court battles over these districts, so we're going to likely see things change between now and 2024. We've already seen things change in Alabama and Mississippi, or Alabama and Louisiana. So just keep that in mind, but I'm doing the best I can here with what information I have. This should be pretty close to accurate. So we're going to get started here by looking at Alabama. As I've said, I've already outlined a district that will likely go Democratic. They could draw it over here too. I'm just going to assume they draw it kind of in the Mobile area, and they bring this out a little further and include Montgomery. But that's all I need to say about Alabama. Likely 2 Democratic seats. The Democrats will be gaining 1 there. In Alaska, let's take a look at this state. So I'm going to put in the lean Democratic column. Mary Peltola is the Democratic incumbent here. She won a special election against Palin and Begich last summer. She then won re-election by a pretty good amount, I think like 8 or 10 points against Sarah Palin in November. And now she has the highest statewide approval of any elected official within the state. So she's doing very well for herself right now. I'm going to say she wins by maybe 4 points. That's a little cautious. She could easily win by more, but I'm going to say with Trump on the ballot, we could see Republicans maybe polarize a little bit and vote for her opponent, but she's still very popular, and I do think that it's kind of hard to see her as an underdog at this point in time. Arizona, we have a couple interesting races here. The first thing that's worth noting is that there was a seat that in 2022 flipped Republican against a Democratic incumbent. That was the 2nd district. Eli Crane beat out Tom O'Halloran, who was redrawn into a Trump +8 seat, as you can see right here. And so, look, I'm going to say that this seat stays Republican, but I do think it maybe narrows up a little bit because Joe Biden will be on the ballot again and likely outperform on the ballot and just drive up Democratic turnout with native voters. So I think that what probably falls below a 15-10% margin of victory. But the competitive races are the first in the 6th district. And so the 1st district voted for Tom O'Halloran by a little under a point last November. And that's not really a good showing for him because it's a left-trending seat, and he beat Jevin Hodge, but only by 0.8%, when Hodge was not really funded at all by National Democrats. They did not assume he was going to be competitive in this race. So pretty unimpressive performance for David Schweikert, and I think he's in the lean Democrat column at this point in time. He's a good incumbent. I think he'll outperform Trump, but not by enough to win a suburban left-running seat like this. And then going up to the 6th district, that is obviously a bit tighter. Republicans won it by 1.5. Juan Ciscomani there, flipping that seat from blue to red. And this seat only voted for Biden by 0.1% in 2020. I think it did trend left, so maybe he wins it by 2% this year. Either way, though, Democrats didn't fund Kirsten Engel last time she was their candidate, and they, again, did not fund her for whatever reason. They actually spent more money in the district they lost by 8 than the district they lost by a couple thousand votes. So I think they're really going to try to avoid making that mistake again, and I'm going to say that this 6th district votes for Kirsten Engel. She's running again. I think she wins by maybe a point, although it will be very close. California, I'm going to kind of have to speed run this. There's a lot of competitive seats here. The 3rd district voted, we're just going to kind of go in order. The 3rd district voted for Trump in 2020 by 2%. It is left trending. Biden could actually win it maybe by a point or so next year. Either way, though, Kevin Kiley's a good incumbent. He outran by a pretty substantial margin, as you can see, between that 7 and 2%. And yes, 2022 is a red wave for Republicans in California, but this seat is still red or down ballot, and I think Kylie holds on for one more year, although he could be in trouble come 2028. And then going over to that 9th district, Josh Harder, he won by 10 last year, and that was a year where Newsom did really poorly at the top of the ticket. I'm going to put that in the safe column. But that 13th district, that's an interesting one. John Duarte won by just under half a point in a Biden plus 11 district. Biden might actually do worse in 2024 here. This is kind of a seat that you might expect to trend right, especially because it's very Hispanic and not college educated at all. That being said, I don't think it'll be by enough. And again, the electorate of this district was so white and Republican that if you get even like maybe 2% more Hispanic turnout in this seat, it would have voted Democrats. So in a presidential year, that's an upside that Democrats have, and I think that the 13th district does go flip back to them. The 22nd, kind of a similar thing here. Look, David Valadao is a really good incumbent. I don't want to take that away from him, but this seat is a seat that I'm really bullish on Democrats in. Biden won it by 13. He might win it by a little less this time. Again, it's very Hispanic, very non-college educated, so it could trend right again. Maybe he wins it by 11 this time. But here's the problem for Republicans. David Valadao has historically been a very good overperformer, and he won in a blue seat, so I guess he did his job. But he actually did not really outperform Brian Dawley, who was the GOP nominee for governor, by that much. He really didn't do that well compared to how he done in previous years. And on top of that, we have evidence that among the moderate or swing voters in that district, his opponent, Rudy Salas, who's running again, did very well. And the only reason Salas lost against Valadao was because of horrible turnout. And if you look at this district, I can prove by just looking at the map. Go to a Bay Area seat like this Panetta versus Gorman seat. They combined here for around 182,000 votes, okay? In this 22nd district, they barely got to 100,000. The seat was historically low turnout even for a midterm, and I think when you account for just a bit more Hispanic turnout, we likely see Rudy Salas beating Valadao in round 2. Going over to the 27th district, this one's really close. I don't really know how to feel about it, to be completely honest with you. Garcia won by 6.5 last time, so I'm not going to bet against that for now, but it's a seat that I could easily see going blue. I did not mean to touch that North LA seat. That's going to stay with... Actually, Adam Schiff is running for Senate, so that'll stay blue, but it won't be for Adam Schiff. But I'm going to keep this in the tilt Republican column. It's just kind of hard to see it, how I can make a valid argument for him losing right now, but I think he definitely could. But let's zoom into LA. Let's go to this metro area. That 45th district, Michelle Steele, in 2022, she won by 5, and she did so in a Biden plus 6 seat. This seat is kind of weird because it didn't really trend either way in 2020. Biden outran Clinton, but not by too much. So I'll say she holds on, but it will be a close race. Young came over. She's going to win easily. Obviously, that race she's in a seat that voted for Biden by 2, and it's actually pretty right trending. A lot of Vietnamese voters there who are swinging against Democrats. I think that will stay with Young Kim easily. These two seats on the coast, 47 and 49, they're both double-digit Biden seats. They're left trending. I don't see why Democrats would have a problem holding them. I know Katie Porter's retiring, but she will likely... Democrats are going to feel a decent replacement here no matter what, and I think they win by mid-single digits. At 41st district, this is the race to watch in California. I'm telling you. Ken Calvert underperformed Brian Dawley in the governor's race, and yes, he outperformed Trump, but this is a Republican seat down ballot, and he really didn't do that well, because again, Dawley did 7% better than Trump in California maybe, and Kylie only improved by 3 points. So I'm going to call this a tilt Democratic race, especially you consider that, I'm getting my names mixed up. Ken Calvert only won by 4% in 2022, despite the fact that the Democrats did not really fund Will Rollins that much. Will Rollins was a good candidate, but again, they did not really fund him that much. So this is a seat I think Democrats pick off. It's going to be very close, but it's left-trending enough, and I would say Ken Calvert, to me, will likely go down at this point in time. Colorado, that 3rd and 8th district, these are pretty interesting races. I'll say the 8th stays Democrat just because they have an incumbent here and because it did... it was pretty favorable to them last time. Yadira Caraveo, now that she's the incumbent and has that boost, I think she'll be fine, especially because Biden won it by 4.5 and because it did swing to the left in 2020. Boebert, though, this is a tough race for both parties. I mean, obviously, it's a toss-up, so it's tough. But for now, I'm going to keep it in the tilt Republican column. I think that's the fair play. Adam Frisk is likely to run again, I believe. Or I think he's actually already running. I've kind of forgot if I'm being honest. But either way, look, she underperformed Trump by 8. She's a horrible candidate. I understand that. But with increased rural turnout and with Republicans likely funding Boebert more now they know she's actually in trouble, I think she holds on by a similar amount, maybe by like a point. Again, I know you can make the argument that, look, Democrats are going to fund Frisk more now that they know he can actually beat her. But again, Democrats in 2022, Polis won the governorship by 19. Bennett won the Senate race by like 14. He actually came within, I think, 3 points of winning this district. So again, yes, Boebert could lose, and it's a toss-up for a reason, but I think Democrats had an underrated chance to pick her off last year, and they came just short. So I'll keep it in the tilt Republican column, but definitely a toss-up. This district, that's 5th District, Johanna Hayes, not the best incumbent, but I think she wins by maybe 5. Actually, I'll put it in likely column. I don't really think she's going to lose. Delaware, I'll move this down to likely. Lisa Blunt Rochester is retiring to run for Senate, so we could potentially see Democrats narrow up their margin here. We also saw Democrats actually only win these statewide races in Delaware last year by like 10 to 13 points, so I think it does narrow up a little bit, but it's not competitive. Florida, let's go through these districts. They're kind of drawn weirdly, so they're not too competitive, but the 7th District with Corey Mills, that is up, where is that actually? Let's see, Corey Mills, 7th District. Ooh, that's kind of annoying that I can't find it because I thought I knew where it was, but maybe I have it already highlighted. 7th District. Where is that? That's weird. Oh, no, I was holding over it, but it just showed me Bill Posey's seat. Yeah, no, Corey Mills, I think, is likely. It's not a right trending. I feel like an idiot. I can't believe I was like, go back to that video. I was holding over it and I was confused why I wasn't highlighting. I guess I was wrong, but either way, Corey Mills, getting back on track here, is in a Trumpless 6 seat, and I think he did pretty well last time. Although again, DeSantis and Rubio did really well statewide too, so it's not too much to say about that. I think he'll hold on though. Florida. It's pretty Republican nowadays. I think he'll be fine here, unless Biden really does well in North Orlando, which is possible, but I wouldn't bet on it. 9th District, Darren Soto, he won by 7 in 2022, which is a pretty decent showing. I think he'll, again, like Corey Mills, be fine. 15th and 13th District. The 13th is kind of interesting, so I'll get back to that, but the 15th with Laura Lee in a Trumpless 3 seat, she'll likely hold on by a good amount. Moskowitz in the 23rd, that's a Biden plus 13 seat. It's right trending, so I guess I'll put it in the leading column, but I'm not too worried here if I'm a Democrat. I'm putting this in the safe column. But the 13th, this is the only interesting one in Florida come next year. So Anna Paulina Luna, who's the incumbent Republican, only outran Trump by a point. And that's, again, you don't want to see she only outperformed by X amount, but you look at these other performances of Trump, because, again, Florida shifted red all across the board last year. 12%, 10%, 14%, 9%. 14% again. This one's only 1%. She's a weak incumbent, and I think the seat is pretty left-trending. It's in Pinellas County, so I'll put it in the lean GOP column, but it is kind of a sleeper flip for the Democratic Party. I will say that. Now, going over to Georgia, there's only one seat I left blank here. It's that 2nd District, pretty right-trending seat, but Sanford Bishop's a good incumbent, and I think he will hold on by a decent amount, especially with increased black turnout. He'll probably be fine. Illinois, not too much to say here. These are all pretty good seats for Democrats. The 17th is the only one I think could be competitive, with Eric Sorensen as the incumbent, but he won by 4 last time, and I do think that he's going to not really have too much of a problem holding on again. Obviously, it's competitive. It is right trending, so we could easily see Republicans make a play for it, but with the incumbency boost and with Democrats increasing turnout from their urban centers of the district presidentially, I think it stays with the Democrats. Indiana, similar thing in this 1st District. It's right trending, but Frank Mervin's a good incumbent. He won in 2022, so I don't see why he'd lose next year. Iowa, these seats are all pretty good for the GOP. Obviously, the 3rd District was it was a toss-up seat last year because there was a Democratic incumbent, Cindy Axne. But again, Zach Nunn he was a state senator. He was a good candidate from the start, and he outperformed Trump by 0.4, and the seat is kind of left trending. I do think Biden could win it next year, but he's no performer, and I think he's going to do fine. I think maybe I'll put it in the lead, but I think he'll hold on by 4 or 5 points. Kansas, this 3rd District is basically safe Democrat. I'll put it likely because she won by like 12, so maybe she doesn't win by as much, but as you can see here, she did really well, and it's a left-trending seat. I think Biden will do well. I'm also going to move the 2nd District down from safe to likely. Trump won it by 16 and Turner won it by 15, so he's an underperformer. You could also say it's left trending, so maybe it falls to below 15. I don't know. I'll just put it there. Kentucky, this seat will be likely Republican just because there's a court challenge to it. Obviously, if it stays the way it is, it's Trump plus 11, and Andy Barr is a pretty good incumbent. He would win easily if it stays as this Trump plus 11 seat. But for now, I'm going to say that there's a chance it gets overturned by the court. Whatever the court says, we'll go with, obviously, because they're in charge here. But the 6th district for now would stay Republican, but there is a maybe 20% chance it gets overturned. Louisiana, as I said, we have this seat up here, that 5th district that I do expect to be drawn into a majority black seat of some sort that will likely elect a Democrat. Maine, Jared Golden, I do think he'll hold on. I've been bullish on him, or I've been really bearish on him in the past. I'm done making that mistake. He is going to win again. For whatever reason, I've always been underestimating him, but he outperformed Joe Biden by 12 points in 2020, so safe to say if he does that again, he'll be winning by a comfortable amount. Maryland, only one seat to talk about here. It's David Trones in the 6th district. He won by basically the same amount Joe Biden did, and with that, again, with that being said, he is retiring to run for Senate, but I would say Democrats should hold on to this. I'll put it in likely because it maybe will fall below 10%, but it's super left trending. And again, Biden will likely carry it by double digits to the top of the ticket. Massachusetts, nothing going on there. Michigan, though, a lot of seats here. So that third district, I'm going to put it in the likely column. Schulten won by 13 last year. And yeah, she had Whitmer on the ballot, so I think maybe she wins by a bit less or maybe a similar amount, but likely. Dan Kildee, 8th district, he outperformed Biden by 8. I don't think he'll do as well this year, but I do think he'll win by a pretty good amount, 4 to 5 points. And then these two seats, these are the two toss-ups. So I'll stick with the incumbent parties here. I'm going to keep the 7th with the Democrats and the 10th with the Republicans, but I do want to kind of go through them here. The 7th, Slotkin's retiring to run for Senate. She's a decent candidate. She outperformed Biden by 5, so again, not a bad candidate to run if you're a Democrat in Michigan, but they could definitely do better. But here's what I will say about this district. It's really weird. It was very Republican for a while. It flipped to Democrats in 2018, and they have had a pretty firm hold on it ever since then. I think they're going to hold it again this year, but if Biden does really regress in central Michigan for whatever reason, it could potentially elect a Republican now that Slotkin's retiring to run for Senate, but I think it's going to stay blue. Now, John James's seat, this is an interesting one because Republicans are kind of worried about him because, again, he actually underperformed Trump, first of all. And secondly, in 2022, I will pull up the vote margin. I think he only won by around 1,000 votes here. Yeah, he only won by 1,500 votes. And Democrats did not fund his opponent. And as you can see here, he actually shouldn't have won. Carl Marlinga would have won had the Working Families candidate, Andrea Kirby, not run. And Working Families Party usually takes votes away from Democrats. So, I don't know. I'm just gonna say that the Republicans hold on to the seat because James is the incumbent and because Marlinga likely benefited from Whitmer doing so well at the top of the ticket. But it's a sleeper flip for Democrats. I'll say that. Minnesota, 2nd district here. I'm gonna keep that in the likely column. Craig outperformed Biden, or she didn't outperform Biden, but she did really well. Only underperforming him by 2 in a super suburban seat. She will likely be fine there. Missouri, interesting seat here. The 2nd district actually was very close in the Senate race. Obviously, Ann Wagner won it by 12% in her House race, but I believe it was within 5 points between Trudy Bush Valentine and Eric Schmidt in the Senate race. So, I guess I'll keep it likely because she's no performer, but I don't know by how much. I would say it's kind of on the lower end. Again, she's a good incumbent. Don't get me wrong. She outran Trump in a year where Missouri was actually bluer. For some reason, it actually trended statewide. Democrats did better in 2022 than they did in 2020. So it's certainly a weird seat in a weird state politically, but for now, we're going to keep it in the likely Republican column. Now, this seat, this is a good one to talk with. This is a hot take I have, okay? And this is I think, one of the seats that if you are looking for a hill to die on this year that's controversial, that will get you some, weird looks, it's this 1st district. So this seat, I'm going to put in the Till Democratic column. And you might be thinking, well, hold on. Why are you doing that? And the reason I'm doing that is because of a lot of things. It's multiple reasons. So first of all, so as you can see here, Ryan Zink is the incumbent, and he did not do well in 2022. He only won by 3 in a Trump plus 7 district in a year where Democrats did not have a governorship to contest. They did not have a Senate race to contest. And on top of that, Monica Tranel was not properly funded. She was a good candidate, as you can see here. She only lost by 8,000 votes in a year where Democrats, again, did not contest anything statewide. But she was not funded properly. And on top of that, Zink was the Trump pick. So he already had a name for himself. And he actually represented the statewide district in Montana. Back when they only had one seat, he represented the seat for a couple of years. So that was a really bad showing for Ryan Zink last November. And in addition to that, Democrats now have a two statewide races to contest, one of which they're actually arguably favored to win. So the first is the governorship, which I think they're going to lose. But whoever they run for governor will likely outrun Joe Biden by a little bit. And that will have Democrats, I guess, energized down ballot, which will help them increase turnout in areas of the seat. Because, again, this is a district with a lot of liberal hubs, like Missoula specifically, which is the most progressive part of Montana. And then secondly, that Senate race, Jon Tester is going to carry, I will tell you right now, he's going to carry this district. And he's going to obviously try to win statewide. Even if he loses, he's going to carry the seat by a good amount. So with Tester likely outrunning Biden by at least 10 points statewide, probably closer to 15, I'm going to say he carries this district by maybe 5 minimum and 15 max. So with him carrying that seat by a good amount, let's say 10 in the middle, I think Democrats win it. It's mostly down ballot stuff. I also think that Zink, since he's such a weak incumbent, Democrats will try to target him to kind of widen their range here for a House majority. Either way, call this a seat that I'm kind of truthering on this year. Obviously, my mind could change, but this is a hill I'm going to die on, I believe, at this point. Now, Nebraska, we have 2 competitive seats here. The first district voted for Republicans by 16% in 2022. Trump plus 11. I think it'll be a pretty similar amount. They probably win it by 12 or 13. But the second district, this is the one everyone's watching. Don Bacon won by 3 points in a seat voted for Biden by 6. But here's the issue. We saw Republicans in the governorship win it by just under a point. So Jim Pillen, the GOP nominee for governor, won this district by 1%. So he outperformed Donald Trump by 7. And what that means is that Don Bacon might have outperformed Trump by, 10% or 9% here, but he only outperformed Jim Pillen by 2%. And if he only outperforms Trump by 2%, he's going to lose. Now, I think he'll outperform Trump by a little more than 2, but I think right now the trends in this seat and the fact that Tony Vargas, who ran for Democrats last time, was a pretty good candidate in the end, only lost by, as you can see here, he got 49% of the vote. He did pretty well, only lost by 4,000 or 6,000 votes here. With him running again, I think Democrats flip it. I think it's a narrow flip for them, but they do hold on to it. Nevada, I'm just going to put all these seats in lean Democrat. They were all, as you can see, they're all kind of similar margins of victory for the Democratic incumbents here. Horsford won by 4, Titus won by 6, and Lee won by 4. So I'm going to put them all in the lean D column just for now. Going over to New Hampshire, both these seats I think are likely Democrat. We saw Republicans make a really big play for the first district. Carolyn Leavitt was actually favored to win by many people against Chris Pappas in this Biden plus 6 coastal seat. But in the end, Pappas outperformed Biden. He did very well and will likely be going to the House for a second term. Custer, even better. She won by 12, and I don't think Republicans are even going to try to beat her this year. Now, New Jersey, a couple competitive seats here. The 5th District, Josh Gottheimer, he won by 10% last year. I think he wins by a similar amount, although it could trend left, and that could help him. But the 7th District is another one that I think is really interesting. Tom Keene is a good incumbent. He's already, I think, doing a pretty good job of moderating to win over this seat. Was Biden plus 4 in 2020, but it did trend left. It was a Trump seat in 2016, so keep that in mind. It will likely trend left again, as most suburbs do, so that could be a problem. And on top of that, we did see Tom Keene win, but it was in a much better environment in New Jersey. Democrats did not have a governorship or a Senate race to contest statewide, and so they didn't really have any statewide candidates that would help them get out the vote. So I'm going to say, with increased turnout from Democratic parts of the district and with the fact that Biden will likely carry it by upwards of 4% this time, I think Tom Keene will lose re-election. Now, Democrats did get a pretty serious blow last week. Tom Malinowski said he would not run for this seat. Malinowski obviously ran for this, or he was the incumbent in this district that was kind of drawn out and lost. But again, I think he did a good job in 2022, narrowing this to a 3-point margin of victory for Tom Keene. Either way, though, I think Democrats, no matter who they run, obviously, they could run something horrible, but I think as long as they run a decent candidate, I think I'll call them the favorites in this race. New Mexico, Obviously, these seats, you know how I feel about these seats. I think these are all in the likely column except for that second, which is I'm going to put it in the lean column. Gabe Vasquez won by a point against the GOP incumbent. I think Carell might run again, but again, she's subpar. She underperformed Ron Chetty by a good bit, and I would put in the lean Democratic column with Vasquez being an incumbent. Now, New York, this is a really interesting state in the House specifically, and we saw Republicans do really well here last midterm. Just to kind of recap, they flipped a lot of districts. Brandon Williams in the 22nd, or this wasn't a flip, but I'm just kind of all their competitive wins. Williams in the 22nd, Molinaro in the 19th, Lawler in the 17th, Despacito in the 4th, Santos in the 3rd, which obviously that will likely be off the board, and then LaLota in the 1st. So, Republicans had a really good year. The only competitive seat they lost is Pat Ryan's district in the 18th. So that seat, I think, stays blue. It voted for Joe Biden by 8%, and I think Pat Ryan will likely hold on now that Biden will be on the ballot again. And again, most of these seats that are I'm leaving blank here, with the exception of the 2nd district, which voted for Trump by 2, and he won by 21. So that seat I'm going to call likely Republican. But these remaining districts, I think, are all going to vote for Joe Biden. Oh, also not the Staten Island seat. But these remaining districts now will all vote for Joe Biden. And on top of that, I believe they all trended left, with the potential exception of the 4th district. I think they all trended left. So that's going to help Democrats. But either way, we're going to go downstate here. So the 22nd, Democrats actually did pretty well here, all things considered. When you look at how they did in these other seats downstate, the 22nd was not that bad of a performance. Cannoli was a pretty bad candidate, and they only lost by 3,000 votes. I think that seat will flip Democratic. 19th, Molinaro, he's pretty good. He beat Josh Riley by 2, and Josh Riley was a pretty good candidate, so I could definitely see him holding on. I'm going to call it tilt Republican for now just because of the incumbency factor, but that's a seat that I don't have any strong feelings about. I think it could definitely change in the future. 17th district, though, this is a seat that I think will flip. Mike Lawler, as you can see here, he only won by around half a point against Sean Patrick Maloney, who, again, was a fine incumbent. I mean, people really think he was a horrible incumbent. I think he was decent. He actually won a Trump seat back in 2016, but really collapsed in 2022. So it's kind of a mixed bag for me. Either way, though, Democrats are already fielding a couple candidates in this seat. Between Mondaire Jones, there's another, I believe, state assembly woman who's running. I think it's Liz Whitmer is her name. Please don't quote me on that because I could be wrong. I don't want to mislead anyone, but I believe her name is Liz Whitmer. Either way, though, she and Mondaire Jones, I think, would both beat Mike Lawler. Mike Lawler, again, I'm actually kind of from this. I don't live in this district, but I'm from it, and I go here a lot. And what I will say is that it's a really ticket-splitty area. It's mostly white, mostly college-educated voters. So there are a lot of upsides to being a Republican in a House race here. But Biden will likely carry it by, let's see, he won it by 10 in 2020. He probably wins it by like 15 this time. And so for that reason, I'm going to say Lawler just can't hold on. Again, when you consider that he actually did not overperform Zeldin, I think Zeldin won the seat by like 2, and he won it by half a point, so he actually underperformed Zeldin. I think that is where I'm at here. I think he loses by 4 or 5. Santos' seat, that's likely Democratic. Obviously, Santos has been the most scandal-plagued incumbent of any party this year, and obviously he won by 7 last year, but that's a seat that to me will likely flip. Despacito, too, he's a better incumbent than Santos, and he won a Biden plus 14 seats, so he's obviously a force to be reckoned with, but I'll call that lean Democratic. LaLota, though, I do think he'll hold on. It's a Biden seat, and I think Biden could win it again, but he won by 11, and again, he is a pretty good incumbent, so I'm going to call that a lean Republican race. North Carolina, so we don't really know what's going to happen here because of the redraw. And with the courts becoming increasingly pro-majority black seats, I think that will likely cause the North Carolina Republicans to be a bit more cautious here. So I think they're going to likely they'll probably gain back that 13th district, and I think they're going to draw out Jeff Jackson in the 14th somehow, but I think Democrats will hold on to the 1st and the 8th or in the 6th. I don't think they're going to want to gut these seats too prematurely. But again, it's all the court ruling. It's all going to come down to how the map gets drawn. So that is kind of a one we can't talk about yet. Ohio, though, a couple competitive seats here. So first of all, the 10th district was only Trump plus 4. I don't know why it's safe Republican. It was only Trump plus 4, and Sherrod Brown will likely carry it, and Biden will likely maybe come close to carrying it. So I'm going to put that in the likely column for Republicans for now. And then going up to the 13th, I think that stays Democrat. Obviously, it is a right-trending seat, but with increased turnout from the Akron area, I do think Amelia Sykes will do well. Again, she actually did do pretty well last time. She outran Biden, and she is I would say at least a pretty good incumbent. Copter in the 9th district, she won by 13, but it is right trending, and I think Majewski was kind of a joke candidate. Obviously, by the end, no one was really taking him seriously, so I'm going to say for now, she'll probably win, but that is, like, Democrats think she's, like, guaranteed to win. I think she's probably going to win, but I don't know by how much, and I think it's kind of a less of a sure thing than most Democrats would like it to be. So, yeah, Copter is a good incumbent. I know I was burnt by her last election. I'm not going to make that mistake again, but for now, to me, I'm a little lower in her margin of victory than most people are. First district, though, that one will likely stay blue. Greg Lanson beat Steve Cabot by 5.5, and he was the incumbent, and the seat could actually get redrawn to be just kind of a safe blue seat with only Cincinnati in it, so I'm going to say that stays blue no matter what. And as you can see, your Democrats are getting pretty close to that majority. Oregon, 4th, 6th, and 5th district here. The 6th and 4th are going to stay blue. They both voted for Biden by double digits in 2020, and I think they're going to be pretty similar. The 5th district was Biden plus 9, but Lori Chavez de Ramos is a pretty good incumbent. That being said, Democrats in 2022 only won the governorship by, I think, 4, and obviously that was a competitive race, so you can't really blame them for that, but at the same time, we did see an underperformance by Tina Kotek at the top of the ticket, so I'm just going to say for now, the 5th district will go blue just because Biden will likely do so much better statewide than Tina Kotek did, but Chavez Dramer is a good incumbent. It's a really weird area because in specific, these North Portland suburbs are kind of not really meant to be in a district with Bend. Bend is kind of out here. These North Portland suburbs are over here, and Bend is much more progressive itself, and it's surrounded by these super Republican rural areas, whereas the North Portland suburbs are kind of just moderately liberal. So there's a lot of factors that will go into this race. I think it's a really weird district that was drawn very poorly. It's actually a gerrymander. Technically, Democrats drew the seat to create a competitive district in the middle of the state, but either way, I'm just going to stick with the Tilt D rating, but it's a really weird district. It's one of my least favorite districts in the country. It's drawn horribly. Now, going over to Pennsylvania, a lot of competitive races here. The Democrats did pretty well in last time. I think they're going to hold on to the 17th district and the 6th district, and I think Susan Wild will win. She won by 2% in the Biden plus 0.5 seat last time, and with Biden likely carrying it by a little more this time, I think she wins again. Obviously, Brian Fitzpatrick will win. Now, the 10th and 8th district, these are interesting. The 10th district, Perry, he did outrun Donald Trump in a year Shapiro won the district, so it could be a pretty solid Republican seat, but it is left trending, and I think Trump's going to really bomb in this area. So I'm going to move it down to the lean column, kind of a seat that I think a lot of people think Republicans are going to win easily, but I think it'll be closer. And then the 8th district, Matt Cartwright, obviously a very good incumbent there, but it is right trending, and I think Biden will actually do worse there than he did last time. So I think he loses it by 4, and I think Cartwright wins by maybe 2, but still kind of a sleeper flip for Republicans. And as you can see, your Democrats have officially won that majority with Pennsylvania. We only have a couple more states to go to. Rhode Island, obviously, I think without Alan Fung, Matt Gazziner will be fine. South Carolina, Nancy Mace, her district voted for Trump by 8.5 in 2020. It will get bluer. I think Biden will lose by maybe 6 this time. So that's an underrated factor for her, but I do think she'll win. Tennessee, Andy Ogles, that's the 5th district, obviously voted for Trump by 11. That's another left-running seat that will likely see a reduced margin of victory for Trump, but will not really pose a threat to Republican incumbents. But Texas, going to kind of stop here for a little bit. So first of all, Beth Van Doyne's seat, she in 2022, let's see, that's the 24th, I believe. She won by 19 in a Trump plus 12 seat, so she's a good incumbent, and I think Trump will likely win it by enough for her to win by maybe like 14 or 15. Either way, though, put it in the likely column just to be cautious, because these seats, once they start trending left, they don't stop. But the Rio Grande Valley is really what we're watching here. The 28th, I think, will stay with Cuellar, probably by 6 or 7. The 34th, I think, will also stay blue. Vicente Gonzalez won by 8 last time. That's a pretty good margin against an incumbent like Maya Flores, so I'm going to say it stays blue, but the 15th is going to stay red, obviously. Monica De La Cruz, she outran Trump by 6 in 2020, and it's a right-trending seat. Trump will likely do very well here again. I think it stays red, even if Colin Allred does well here. Utah, nothing going to happen there. Virginia, though, a couple interesting seats here. Jen Wexton's going to hold on. Obviously, that's a seat that Biden won in 2020 by 18. She didn't do that well this time. She won it by 6.5, so she's not She didn't have a great showing last time, but I think she'll likely do fine this year, especially with Biden likely carrying it by more. The 7th district, that's an area that I think Democrats will likely hold on to as well. Abigail Spanberger is a good incumbent. She won by 5 in a year where Republicans did pretty well in Virginia statewide, so I think she'll likely be fine. Jen Kiggins, though, this is an interesting one. She won by 3.5, which is about what was expected of her. I don't think she did amazing, but I also think that she did, she didn't do bad in a Biden +2 seat. And again, we saw a decreased turnout from majority black areas of the district kind of out here in these, or kind of towards Virginia Beach. And I think we also saw her benefit from Republicans doing better at the top of the ticket. So I'm going to say for now, Joe Biden will carry Virginia by maybe 12, and I think that'll be just enough to boost whoever her opponent is to victory, but it will be very narrow. And then in the 1st district right here, Rob Whitman, he won by 13 this time, so it is a likely margin. I'm just going to call it likely just to be cautious here because, again, this is a left-turning district. Biden did a lot better here than Hillary Clinton, so it will trend left again. I think that could be a cause for concern for Republicans in the future. Not now, though. Washington, these 2 seats, I'm going to call the 8th likely in the 3rd tilt. So the 8th voted for Joe Biden by 7 in 2020, and Schreier won it by she actually outran him, so she did really well in 2022. I'm going to say that's a pretty solid seat for Democrats, especially with Schreier being a good incumbent and Biden likely winning it by more this time. But all eyes were on the 3rd district. Mary Glusom Kemp-Perez, she's the incumbent in the 3rd district. She actually beat Joe Kemp by about a point last time. Did I say Joe Kemp? I meant Joe Kent, sorry. But Joe Kent is running again for Republicans, and he, I think, will cost them the seat once again. He's obviously a very bad candidate, kind of like a Doug Mastriano of Washington. And on top of that, it's a left-running seat, and I've been saying this all video, sound like a broken record, but there are districts where Biden's going to do very well, and this is one of them. I don't think he'll win it, but I think he will do maybe 3% better. Maybe he'll bring it to within a point, and that will be enough for Perez to overperform and win. And so with her being a good incumbent, I think she's going to hold on pretty easily. I shouldn't say easily, but I think it's pretty clear that she's favored here. That's for sure. Wisconsin, redraw likely to happen. I think that they're going to draw a pretty Democratic-leaning 3rd district that I think will be lean D. The first is a pure toss-up for how they draw it. I'm going to say that they're going to be cautious and that Brian Steele will narrowly win. I think they might draw, because right now his seat voted for Trump by 2. They might draw him into a Biden plus 1 seat that he'll overperform. Because, again, he's a good incumbent, right? They can't just draw a Biden plus 1 seat and have him lose by a point. If they draw a Biden plus 1 seat, he'll probably win by 4. And that's what's going to happen. So unless they draw a super blue seat, unless they really gerrymander it, I think he's going to hold on. The 3rd, though, Derek Van Orden, he's not a good incumbent, and he, you can pretty easily draw his seat into a Democratic-leaning seat, and that's what they're going to do. So that'll give Democrats a seat, and that's where we're going to leave off here. 228 Democratic seats, 207 Republican seats. This is actually almost the exact opposite of my prediction in November 2022, where I had Republicans at 227, Democrats at 208, and Democrats ended up getting 213, so I was 5 seats off for each party, which is not too bad. I'm pretty proud of that prediction, especially considering most people were 20 seats off. But either way, this is my starting map. Obviously, very long video, as all my House videos are. I just cannot condense them because I think these races are all individually so interesting. But again, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and I will see you all in the next one.